What is the best Chinese city to live in as a foreigner? I don't want this video to be a very specific debate about whether Shanghai is better than Beijing. I think the best way to approach the question is to look at a more generalized view in terms of Chinese tiered cities. Now, what you'll find if you come to China is that most foreigners live in tier 1 cities like Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen. And it makes sense. These cities are the ones that have the highest quality jobs, they have the most number of English speakers, and generally speaking, it will be much easier for a foreigner to move to somewhere like Shanghai than it would be for them to go to a small Chinese town in the middle of China. But that doesn't mean living in these tier 1 cities is the best choice for everybody. And I think it really comes down to what your goals are in coming to China. If your goal in coming here is to have a good time, to socialize, to explore China, and you want to get a, generally speaking, more professional kind of job, then tier 1 cities are going to be your best bet. They have the best quality jobs, most people speak English, and you'll have a generally better social life living in these cities than you would if you lived in smaller towns and cities across China. That said, if your goal in coming to China is to learn Chinese, pick up a new skill, start a new project, save money, then I would actually advise that you avoid the tier 1 cities, because those cities are going to make it much harder for you to achieve those goals. Living in smaller towns and cities across China has a number of benefits depending on which goals you've got. So for example, if you want to learn Chinese, you're going to be much better off in a smaller city where not many people speak English, as that's going to force you to learn Chinese. The same with spending money. If you live in tier 1 cities, you're going to spend way more money than you would if you live in more quiet, boring towns across China. So if your goal is to save money, then living and working in Shanghai is probably not a good idea. When I first moved to China, I started off in a tier 2-3 city called Changzhou in Jiangsu, and it was actually a good place to start. I ended up saving a good amount of money and learning a basic amount of Chinese. And then as my goals changed over time, I ended up moving to larger and larger cities until I eventually ended up here in Chongqing. Another nice thing about living in smaller cities is that it's not so overwhelming. If I had come to Chongqing as my first city in China, I think it can be a little bit overwhelming for somebody who doesn't know anything about China. The smaller cities are kind of like a starting area in a video game. You are able to live in China on easy mode, essentially. It's much less difficult, it's much less expensive, and you really get a nice, easy way to come into China and get the lay of the land without having the craziness that comes with living in the tier 1 cities. If you want more content about living and working abroad, then give this account a follow. Bye bye.